Hello everyone. This week we will discuss the unsaturated hydrocarbons, alkenes and alkynes. Alkenes and alkynes are unsaturated hydrocarbons because they contain carbon-to-carbon multiple bonds. This means one or more carbon atoms in the compound are not bonded to the maximum number of hydrogen atoms. Alkenes are hydrocarbons that contain carbon-to-carbon double bonds. Alkynes are hydrocarbons that contain carbon-to-carbon triple bonds. Most of the organic chemicals used in making medicines, explosives, paints, plastics, and pesticides are synthesized by routes that begin with alkenes. Millions of tons of the alkene compound ethylene are produced annually, mostly for making polyethylene plastic. Ethylene is also a naturally occurring organic compound found in plants, where it acts as a ripening and decaying hormone. Many commercial fruit growers spray their fruits with ethylene gas to hasten ripening. Alkenes and alkynes have similar properties to alkanes. They are nonpolar compounds that are insoluble in water but soluble in nonpolar organic solvents. They are less dense than water, flammable, and non-toxic. Alkenes display cis-trans isomerism when each double bond carbon atom has different substituents. The multiple bonds is the site of reactivity for both alkenes and alkynes. Naming alkenes and alkynes follows the same basic rules as those for naming alkanes. The first step is to find the longest continuous chain of carbon atoms. The suffix "-ine" for alkenes and "-ine" for alkynes are attached to the same number prefix as those used for alkanes. When determining the longest chain of carbon atoms, it is important to remember that the double or triple bond must be included in the parent chain. So, as in this example, the longest chain here is actually 7 carbons or heptane. But since it does not include the double bond, this is not the correct LCC. The correct one has only 6 carbons but includes the double bond. In this case, it is hexene. Alkenes and alkynes also have cyclic or ring structures. The naming rules are the same as those for cycloalkanes, except of course for the suffix. So here we have cyclobutene, cyclopentene, cyclohexaone-3-diene, and cyclodecyne. Cyclic alkynes are highly unstable, and alkynes with small number of carbons do not form cyclic structures. The most stable cycloalkyne is cyclodecyne. Cyclooctane and cyclononine have been observed in the lab, but their existence is only temporary. The next step is to number the carbon atoms in the main chain or parent chain. When numbering the LCC, the double or triple bond must have the lowest number possible. So, in our first example, the numbering starts from the left. When there is a side chain in the LCC, as in the second example, the double or triple bond still takes priority. So, the numbering is from right to left. In the third example, when the double or triple bond has the same carbon number, whether numbered left to right or right to left, the numbering begins from the side closest to a side chain. In our example, the numbering is from right to left because of the side chain methyl. When there are 2 double bonds present, the numbering is from the side closest to a double bond, and we use the prefix di, tri, etc. in the name. When a double and triple bond are both present, the numbering starts from the end closest to either of the bond. In our example, the double bond is closer to the terminal carbon on the left, so numbering is from left to right. When numbering cycloalkenes, both carbons involved in the double bond are numbered 1 and 2 respectively. Numbering can be clockwise or counterclockwise. If there is a side chain, the side chain should have the next lowest number possible. So in this example, the numbering is clockwise because it gives the side chain the next lowest number. This other example is incorrect because the side chain has a higher number. When there are two double bonds in the compound, the other double bond should have the next lowest number possible, and we use the prefix di or tri before the suffix "in" when naming. The next step is to name the substituents or side chains and the carbon number on the parent chain to which they are attached. The two compounds on the left have no substituents, so they will be named after the parent chain. This next compound has a methyl side chain on carbon 4. The third one has an ethyl side chain on carbon 3. This fourth one has a methyl side chain on carbon 3. And this last one has a methyl side chain on carbon 4. Now applying the same basic naming rules, let's name these alkenes and alkynes by putting together the name of the side chain and the name of the parent chain. The first one is pent-2-ene. Note that the carbon number is written after the number prefix but before the "ene" suffix. The next one is 4-methyl-pent-2-ene, then 3-methyl-oct-4-ine. Then we have octa-1,5-diene. Because there are two double bonds, we use the prefix di. Next is 3-ethyl-cyclopentene, then 4-methyl-1-octene-5-ine. Note that when there is both a double and triple bond, the compound is called an alkenine. The alkene suffix "-n" is written before the "-ine". For historical reasons, there are a few alkenes and alkynes whose names do not conform to the IUPAC rules. They are known more by their common names. The 2-carbon alkene should properly be called ethene, but the name ethylene is accepted by the IUPAC. The 3-carbon alkene propene is usually called propylene. The 4-carbon diene, 2-methyl-1,3-butadiene, is more commonly known as isoprene. The simplest alkyne should be ethyne, but it is almost always called acetylene. Alkenes and alkynes undergo similar reactions to alkanes. In these unsaturated hydrocarbons, however, most of the reactions involve the double bonded carbon atoms. Hydrogenation, or the addition of hydrogen, converts the alkene into an alkane. The two hydrogen atoms each take the place of the electrons shared in the double bond, so propylene becomes propane. In halogenation, instead of hydrogen atoms replacing the double bonds, it is the halogen group that does so. In this example, propylene reacted with 2 atoms of fluorine yields the haloalkane 1,2-difluoropropane. Hydrohalogenation is the reaction of alkenes or alkynes with a strong acid. In this example, 2-methylpentene reacts with hydrogen chloride to produce a haloalkane wherein the hydrogen and chlorine atoms take the place of one of the double bonds. To which carbon atom does the halogen attach? Markovnikov's rule tells us that the halogen will attach to the carbon that has fewer hydrogen atoms bonded to it. So one of the double bonded carbons has no hydrogen atoms attached, whereas the other carbon has one hydrogen atom. So, chlorine will attach to the carbon with 0 hydrogen atoms, whereas the other hydrogen will attach to the other carbon with a hydrogen atom to produce 2-chloro-2-methylpentane. Okay, now let's have an example of a hydrohalogenation reaction with an alkene. This alkene is but1-ene or 1-butene reacted with hydrogen bromide. To which carbon do we attach the hydrogen and bromide atoms respectively? Let's consider how many hydrogen atoms are bonded to the double bonded carbons. Remember that carbon has 4 valence electrons. Let's first number the carbons here as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Carbon 1 has 2 of its valence electrons shared with carbon 2 in the double bond, which leaves 2 more valence electrons which are bonded to 2 hydrogen atoms. Carbon 2 has 2 valence electrons shared with carbon 1 and 1 valence electron shared with carbon 3, which means it still has 1 valence electron shared with a hydrogen. So in the reaction with hydrogen bromide, according to Markovnikov's rule, bromine will attach to the carbon with fewer hydrogens, which is C2, whereas this hydrogen will attach to the carbon with more hydrogen atoms, which is C1. So the product of the reaction, remember, will be an alkane, butane. Bromine will attach to this carbon and the other hydrogen will attach to this one to complete the octet requirement. So this reaction gives us 2-bromobutane. And that ends our lecture on unsaturated hydrocarbons. In this lecture, we learned that alkenes and alkynes are called unsaturated hydrocarbons because of the presence of double or triple covalent bonds between 2 carbon atoms. Alkenes and alkynes follow the same nomenclature system as alkanes. Alkenes and alkynes have names that are more commonly used than their actual chemical name. And alkenes and alkynes undergo reactions to form alkenes. Modules 11 and 12 will have a combined activity worksheet. Please refer to Module 12 for the instructions. Thank you for listening.